Hey guys, so I'm out in my shop again, and just figured I kind of enjoyed the last video where just recording some thoughts and stuff, and I'm not making any bullets this time. In fact, I bought a Jim Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle kit with my prize money from the Ultimate Marksman, and I'm gonna get in a second. I'm gonna start breaking that apart and start building it. I wanted to kind of do a little different video. This thing I've addressed some of the stuff in podcasts before, never in like a written, spoken video form. Uh, and that's if you look at my name, it's therapy involved, and that's because I'm a therapist, guys. That is what I do. I'm a mental health and substance use therapist. I work for a nonprofit out in Western North Carolina. The What I want to talk to you about today, though, is kind of how like it matters. The Essentially, guns saved my life, even though guns almost took my life. And it's a kind of a hard story, kind of a weird story in some regards. But I figure, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it because I think it might help some people. It might matter. So when I was senior year in high school, I got really depressed. I'd already been competition shooting for a little bit. I've been doing some stuff. I've been fairly successful. I'd won a few medals, won a couple national championships. But my senior year of high school, uh, essentially after football season ended, and I wasn't like a star football player. I wasn't like all star and stuff. I just enjoyed playing football because I was an angry kid that like playing football gave me a release. When football season ended, I kind of stopped going to school, got really depressed, and what is some stuff that like when people start getting upset and mad or like start getting sad and depressed, it's natural to start wanting that to end. And the most natural way for that to end, excuse me, not the most natural, but like the quickest way for that to end is to, kill yourself. And I was contemplating it. I went as far as, like come up with a plan, stuff like that. I don't really know how far I would have gone with it, but the night that I was like really, really down on myself and thinking about it really hard, a phone call happened, and it was a guy friend of mine that kind of like saved my life in that regard. He didn't really know what was going on. He just kind of wanted to check in on me. The reason I'm gonna kind of that's important though is I had access to firearms, and nothing against my parents in this regard, but because they didn't know, they didn't know better. But I was a young, angsty, really depressed kid that they weren't seeing the depression. They just thought they had no clue something was up. But I had access to firearms, and it almost went really, really bad. And what I meant by a gun saved my life. So I think I've talked about in the past that I know I've talked about it on like certain podcasts, but I've never said it here. I was a firefighter EMT for a little bit, roughly 6, 7 years, depending on what you want to count between paid and volunteer. And in that time, I had some really bad calls, and I wasn't dealing with it well. It's now like it was post traumatic stress disorder, and it was eating me alive. And I still struggle with it to this day some. But what was really killing me was that I didn't have any self care, and the aspect of not having self care is the why I take shooting so seriously now. In that time I wasn't taking care of myself, and self care to me is shooting. That's why I like to talk to people all the time that like shooting can be self care. Like it's therapeutic. That like this isn't a weird thing. Like if you happen to be a clinician, you stumble across this video, which who knows, maybe you will. Maybe this is like kind of a start of a cool thing. But if you are a clinician and you hear a client that says I like to shoot and that's like I go shooting as my self care and stuff like that, cool. It's therapeutic. It is mind numbing in some regards, but it's a way for someone just to get release. And for me, that is like for me, one of the things that I always talk about is mindfulness, and that's the idea that being cognitive of what you're actually trying to do. And shooting is the epitome of that for me. Because think about it, guys. between the acts, like I do muzzle loading, so between the acts of like the cadence of reloading, the breathing control, to have the proper trigger discipline in the pull. That's the same things we do. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed, we teach you breathing control, and we teach you ways to bring yourself down and to calm yourself. It's exactly what you're doing when you're shooting. You are calming your body down. You're working through a cadence that you're squeezing that trigger so it's the perfect shot each time. When I was running EMS, I didn't have that. In fact, I struggled really, really hard with all the stuff that the I don't know who or where I've been if it wasn't for shooting in my life. Um, Coming back to shooting is what saved my life. Um, I am a whole lot different person than I was back then, but I'm still the guy that went through all that stuff. And I'll proudly say to any clinician out there that wants to argue that guns aren't healthy, if it wasn't for firearms, I would not be talking to you right now. Even though firearms is almost the reason I wasn't here to begin with. And that's a hard thing to grip sometimes. It's just to think that like there's so much responsibility in this that like I could have ended myself and based on the depression I was going through because I had easy access to things. So let's talk about that for a second. I don't I hate the word safe storage. It's responsible storage. Safe could be anything. Safe could be making sure that like it's locked behind your door in your house. But like if you have like an angsty teenager at home, is that responsible? Not really. Responsible storage of firearms when you have individuals in the house that should not have access to those firearms is what we're talking about. And I'm lucky that there wasn't a negative outcome for me because I kind of like being here, I kind of like shooting, and I kind of like being around still, and I like talking to you guys. But when it comes to like storage of your firearms, think about what's around you. Think about who's in your house. Think about who comes in and out of your house, and be more responsible. Take personal responsibility of what can happen if someone gets a hold of that firearm. Doesn't matter if it's a muzzleloader or a modern day firearm. Any of these things have the ability to go boom, and we don't want to have a negative outcome in that.